Welcome to Accelerate OC, the only show focused on the people leading innovation in Orange County. Join our host, Kerry Ransom, in his conversations with the trendsetters, entrepreneurs, investors, and leaders here, because it's time to Accelerate OC.
Good morning. Welcome to Accelerate OC. I'm Kerry Ransom, and thanks always to our engineer, Paul, for making me and my guests sound so good. Today's episode is sponsored by OC4 Venture Studio, where I am sitting right now at the new tech startup company building platform and community here in Orange County. And so if you're looking to help for your startup, you want to work with the next generation of really exciting high-tech companies here, or want to be part of the Orange County startup community, you can go to oc4v.com to learn more. I am excited to have my guest today, Derek Herrera. And before we get to hear from Derek, let me tell you a little bit about him. He is the founder of a company here in the medical device space called Spinal Singularity, and they develop products to improve lives for those who have spinal injuries. He started the company about 5 years ago after he had worked for another medical device company, as he shared with me, to really learn the ropes a little bit. And so, clearly he was called to be an entrepreneur, and we want to talk about that journey today. He was a graduate from the Naval Academy and was a Marine Corps officer for many years. And he was actually shot and injured while on the battlefield in Afghanistan and was paralyzed. I think this was in about 2012. And he's been a very active advocate for the Marines and veterans, and is on the board of several foundations in that area. He's also been building a community here amongst other medical device industry founders. And so we're definitely kindred spirits in that regard, in trying to just connect more people here, create more of that support and encouragement amongst the network. And as I talk about a lot, trying to really create advantage for those of us who are trying to create companies and create jobs here in the region. Derek, it's really great to have you here. Thanks for joining me on Accelerate OC this morning.
Thanks for having me, Kerry. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So let's get to the starting line. I mentioned, you started Spinal Singularity several years ago. Did you always have that itch to be an entrepreneur, or what sort of led you to start this?
I think so. I think I've had an entrepreneurial spirit since my earliest memories. And then I joined the military, which in some cases is not entrepreneurial, but in many cases it is. And I was actually a part of the Special Operations community, the Marine Raider community, and I sought that out, which was a very different experience than what you may think of the military. And so we were a small team and tasked with the mission and given a lot of leeway and a lot of latitude to accomplish the mission. And so I feel like I have always had an entrepreneurial spirit, an entrepreneurial drive. And then after I had left the military, I went back to study business at UCLA and learn entrepreneurship and skills that would help me, and became certain that was the path I wanted to follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I think there is a more recent definition of entrepreneurs as really this creative problem solver type approach, and really I think it's partly been used to encompass a bigger group, to say it's not just about starting your own venture. You could be an entrepreneur within an organization. So even just the design of what this Marine Raider group is really set up for that type of creative problem solvers. Small team with a mission. I mean, I've always thought of the startups that I've gotten involved with really from much more of the mission side of it. I mean, I refer to myself as a missionary many times, in that it is about task at hand or problem, and how do we, inspire a group together to go solve it. So I'm sure there are a lot of parallels. So what, as you look back on your experience, what are some of the most kind of formative learnings that you had in that environment that you feel like has prepared you for the battlefield of the medical device industry?
I think there are so many lessons that I can draw on from that experience. But the main theme, I think, was just being able to execute leadership at a scale that's not common outside of the military. And so my first assignment as an infantry officer, I was in charge of a little over 40 Marines and sailors, and tasked with, conducting operations in Iraq in 2008 for 7 months at a time. And so being able to take these individuals and build a team and unite them around a common sense of purpose and mission was something that was truly formative for me. And then continuing to grow from there, moving on, I did another deployment in rose in rank, and I was an executive officer, so basically a kind of a chief of staff for a company of about 200 Marines, and then transitioned to the special operations community where I had a smaller team. We only had about 20 special operators, but we were leveraging a partner nation force in Afghanistan and building, a tribe there to support our operations. And so I think being able to unite people from different backgrounds, very, very diverse backgrounds, around a common goal and a common purpose to accomplish things that are incredibly challenging and often dynamic environments that you may not always be trained or prepared for, is the primary lesson. And that's something all along the way, is that the best people that we get to serve with in the military are at their core, critical thinkers and problem solvers.
Yeah, very, very, very true, and very impressive as well. So as you've transitioned into this medical device industry, what's been the biggest surprise for you?
I think there's been a lot of surprises. So I had no experience in the industry. I didn't know really anything about it until I started to try to learn the industry after I had gotten injured in 2012. And then as I learned more and more, the thing that I found, which was pretty amazing and very surprising, was the welcoming nature of all the people in the community. And I think the sense of camaraderie amongst the med tech and med device ecosystem is built because it is so incredibly challenging to be successful. There's such a wide breadth of functional areas that you have to be specific and successful in. And at our core, we're doing things to really help people and move the needle. And so I think the one thing that was incredibly, positive for me to see and surprising almost was every single person I had cold called or cold messaged on LinkedIn actually got back to me, and some would spend an hour, even though I had no clue. I just was, a young, passionate guy who said, "Hey, here's my story. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to learn. You're an expert. You're the chief of urology at UCLA. Like, can we chat for 15 minutes?" And almost every single person did. And it was pretty amazing to be able to do that, especially for someone with no credibility, no background, just a lot of, drive and passion to try to solve a big problem. And that spanned from clinicians to investors to everybody, right? It's such a challenging but important mission that I feel like we foster a sense of camaraderie and collaboration amongst the community.
Very cool. Have you mentioned, talking to someone like a chief of urology, and so no doubt you've interacted with a lot of medical professionals, scientists, probably even inventors. Is your sense that a lot of those kind of breakthroughs and inventions just ultimately stay on a shelf indefinitely, that it takes someone like you to really connect a lot of the dots, that it's not enough for just the science? I mean, what's been your experience there?
Yeah, that was a surprise as well. What I found, and my initial idea or my hypothesis after I'd gotten injured, was universities and academia is where breakthroughs in research occur. And that is somewhat true. It's not the whole picture. The reality is there are scientific breakthroughs and engineering breakthroughs at academic institutions very regularly, but a vast majority of them will never become a product and never see a patient outside in a commercial setting. And that to me was a huge lesson I learned while at the business school at UCLA. And what drove me and really fulfilled my niche and my role to try to be an entrepreneur in this industry and make that change was marrying the science and the business aspect of any sort of engineering or technical or scientific breakthrough. And so to answer your question directly, there's so much research, there's billions and billions of dollars poured into research every day. And there's intellectual property offices at every university with giant phone books full of patents, right? Or digital catalogs full of patents and ideas that have been somewhat vetted and proof of concept that never get licensed and never see the light of day and never help someone. And that was one of the biggest frustrations I had with my experience as a patient, as a person, and as a participant in some of the research for spinal cord injury specifically was, why is this taking so long? Why is there not investment? Why is there not translation of this product? Why can't I have it, right? This device, you've proven in research and scientific, peer-reviewed research multiple times that this could be incredibly meaningful and impactful for a person like me. Why is it not on the market? And the more I found about that, the more it inspired me to try to pursue this line of work, because it takes more than just good science to be a good product, right? And there's a very, very precarious and challenging environment to navigate to get something on the market and to corral investors and convince them that you have a meaningful business and value proposition and to get it there. And so that's how I ended up, trying to pursue this as an entrepreneur.
Let's go a little bit deeper under the hood there. So is your sense, I mean, I spent some time, we both went to UCLA as we've talked about previously. I spent some time in the Office of Intellectual Property when I was there too. And I was amazed how much IP was in there and how far removed it was from reality. And it just felt like there were so many steps to get from here to there. And, I sort of gave up after not finding something that I felt like was even within a couple steps. So, is that your sense, or is it just the bureaucracy of the situation that you think is the bigger impediment?
I think it's a little bit of both. My view on this has changed over the years as I've learned more. And I was really bitter at first. I thought it was just a bureaucracy and a university thing and everything else. But I think there's competing interests. And so, especially in the US, people seek out academic positions and academic research because of that freedom to explore and innovate and to be totally creative, right? Without deadlines, without restrictions, without, and I'm, grossly overgeneralizing the situation.
Sure,
there are deadlines, there are things, but the incentives in academia are absolutely very different than the incentives in industry.
Well, it's almost academic glory is the ultimate, like you being just renowned as a researcher is enough for a lot of them.
Right. And I used to have a really big issue with research dollars and research grants and things being poured into that effort with nothing coming out. Right. And I thought that was a major issue. And now that I've been on both sides of this for a long time as a business owner and an entrepreneur, and then also as a researcher, and we've received federal funding and federal grants as well. And I think right now we're in a decent space. So over the past probably 10 years, I think these granting agencies have now started to force researchers to start to think about ideas, right? And things like lean startup methodology and how could this be a product? Like, would anybody ever want to buy this? Or like, what could that even look like? And so they're starting to force people to think about that and putting some stipulations on that, which is good. But at the same time, there's a slope, there's a balance, right? And we don't want researchers, and I don't think it would work really if you forced researchers to be under the deadlines and the milestones and the pressure of industry. And it might actually have the opposite effect of, some of these breakthroughs that are actually huge, right? And absolutely impactful. A researcher may take 20 years of nothing, but then if they have the one breakthrough drug that comes out of it, right? Not only is it a multi-billion-dollar business proposition, it's incredibly valuable for humanity too. So I've kind of softened my stance on that. Before I was absolutely very bitter and thought it was bureaucratic and thought it was, those types of issues that were slowing things down. But I think we're in a good spot now. And researchers are thinking about it more and more.
That's really good perspective, I think. And at some level, there needs to probably be a little bit more order than just a chaotic. I mean, it's kind of like, within a company, some companies are way better at this than others. But it's this idea of kind of having a lot of different bets over varied time horizons with some sense of organization, and that you're trying to gain some efficiencies where you can, where historically it's probably been everyone off on their own island. I think in academia, I think it seems like there's a much more coordinated effort, and people are doing a better job of data sharing. Obviously, in this current environment we're in right now, it's probably representing the best collaboration in the history of our globe around this race to find a vaccine or a cure, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I don't know anything about it really that's going on. I don't, except for what I've seen in the news. But my guess is that industry partners and academic partners are working around the clock to foster a level of collaboration we haven't seen before across the globe, like you said, right? And I think a year or two or three or from now, and the details of that come out, and we have successful breakthroughs, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see how that worked out. But the one thing I did learn, and the last thing I'll kind of bring up about the academic system, right, is like, it's not their fault, right? It's that's their incentive. Their metric for success is very clear, right? It's bring in research dollars, publish papers, and that's it, right? They don't care if your kids, your students are happy with the class. They don't care about any of that, right? It's just publish and build credibility, make the institution look good, and if you can bring in research dollars, then great. And so in some cases that becomes this never-ending cycle of just publish, grant, publish, grant, publish, grant. There's never like an end or a product in sight. So but yeah, it's all about incentives, right, and what you measure.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a econ guy, so that it rings true to me. Very, 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 very real. So that, but it'll be interesting to see if this environment really creates a new reality for how even other pharmaceuticals or compounds or even medical devices get developed and tested and brought to market. Are there going to be more fast-tracked or more balance put back? Because my sense as well is that, back to the incentive topic, is that the lawyers and the regulators have really seized a lot more of the control in many cases than we probably need as a society to get some of these breakthroughs out there and allow people, especially in life-saving or other situations, to have more control over their decisions, to say, I'm willing to take the risk because even if it doesn't work for me, it could add tremendous value. And I know there's some of that, but it just seems like there's so much more.
Yeah. I'm not an expert I'd say on the device side, it's pretty good. Like there's, there, especially in our case, we have no one to blame, but our, we're a master of our own destiny, right? The FDA has actually been incredibly supportive and helpful. I think there are a lot of those stories on the drug side, and I'm not an expert in that, but I do know there are processes for that, right? And so I think there's probably, to your point, there's probably ways to improve that and make it more well proliferated throughout the country and things. And I think the other challenge with that is the business incentives too. And so, these studies and the data coming in, especially for drugs, is orders of magnitude more challenging than our device because of the impact and the risk associated with it. And so, but I would agree there's probably ways to improve it and improve access and things. And so, hopefully we'll be able to learn some of those lessons from this crisis.
Hopefully that's one of the silver linings, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think bottom line is, no matter what, the public health landscape will be changed forever. It'll never, we're going to learn things that are going to change the way we think about some of these things forever.
Yes, I agree with that. So as part of your process, you went through a very well-known accelerator program called Combinator. There haven't been that many. I've met a few others, but there haven't been that many here in Orange County specifically that have been through that program. Can you share a little bit with my audience sort of the Y Combinator experience, what you took out of it.
Yeah, Y Combinator was an amazing and informative experience for our team and for our company. They were our first investment, and so we had been trying to solicit investment from different angel investors and groups, and then were accepted into the program there, which was a lot of luck and timing and opportunity. I think we worked really hard to be accepted, but at the same time, I think just looking at the sheer numbers of things, it's I think it's over 6,000 applications and 100 companies in the batch, so it's incredibly challenging to get in. But more than anything, the secrets behind Y Combinator and the things that were incredibly valuable for us was just some basic foundational lessons on how to be an entrepreneur and how to view the life cycle of your company and growth, and how to interact with investors. And then another big advantage of that as well is just, the network, the collaboration, right? Because there's now a group of people you get to meet from different companies and different industries that are all kind of going through the same things. And they do a really amazing job of creating a community that I still reach back to and still, get emails from and still leverage for support today. And so that was incredibly valuable for us. And in our particular case, we were very early in our life cycle. I said it was the first investment. So it was major for us because it was a bit of a de-risking activity and also credibility for our company. And then we also were introduced to additional investors at demo day that were supportive and willing to invest on fair terms, which was good. And we learned a ton, stuff that changed, the way I see things and, lessons that I learned every day. And probably the biggest simple lesson that I think, listeners could take away too is just boiling down entrepreneurship to the simplest, most fundamental terms. And so one of the mottos they use is called "Make something people want." And really, it's really easy to get caught up in all the stuff you have to do or think you have to do, or chasing all of these shiny objects and automating this and building lines of code and doing all this stuff. But at the end of the day, remaining understanding and focused on what the actual mission is, which is build a product and sell it.
Solve a problem. Yeah. Solve a real problem that like you said, something that people want.
Right. And, when you think about it that way, it cuts through the noise real fast, right? And if you can't draw the line with what you're doing to building a good product or, improving it so that people want it and selling it, then it may not be worth your time, right? You maybe want to be doing something else to focus on product and sales.
That's such a great lesson. I'm going to probably clip that out of this and share that even more broadly. I mean, a big reason why we started OC4 was to try to help hone people in on that. I've just met over my time here way too many entrepreneurs that are swimming in all of those decisions. And I talk a lot about how at times I find that they're not, they may have even a good idea that they're onto, but they're so distracted by some of these other things that I feel like their chance of actually developing that right product that solves a problem is going to be low because they're too busy worrying about other things and not distinguishing in the early stages that the product is the business or it really is, that I talk a lot about, you start with this idea, you get it to potentially a product that solves a real problem that people are willing to pay for. And then once they pay you for it, then you start to have a business. And then ultimately you can turn that into a company. But that there's really this continuum, and that just having an incorporation doesn't mean you have a company.
No. And that's one of the best things, right? Is Y Combinator likes and works with that. I think the majority of the people they have in the program are first-time founders. And they do that because you don't know what you're doing, right? And it's a very good and impactful experience for you. So just talented, young, motivated, and passionate people with decent ideas, but that are, exploring entrepreneurship, and they want to arm you with the techniques to be successful. And so the other piece of advice, which I received really early on, and I think contributes to this challenge, right, is when you first start out, everything seems important and you
That's
don't
right.
know. You don't know what you're doing. You're right. Like,
That's right.
oh man, that's important. This is important. Like,
Yeah.
I got to do this. I got to get business cards or
That's
whatever.
right.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
all this stuff. And like, it's hard to say no when someone with credibility and experience. So for example, if I had just met you and I was a first time entrepreneur and you suggested something, my initial inkling would be like, oh, well, Carrie suggested that. I need to do it. Like, go, you're just like chasing your tail. So one of the best pieces of advice I got very early on, I think I got it from one or two people, was like, don't listen to anybody's advice. Like, don't ever take it and just execute, right? Like,
you got to synthesize.
Nobody knows as much about the problem you're trying to solve. If you actually done this and like done your homework and you're the expert and made yourself the expert in your product and your idea, nobody knows as much as you do about it or about the market or about anything else. And so how could something that Carrie says after meeting me for 30 minutes, should I just blindly execute that? No, like I should listen maybe and hear what he's saying and why, try to understand why he's suggesting that. And then, make a decision, make an assessment, say, I understand what he's saying, but it doesn't apply. Or I understand what he's saying, we're going to do it later. Or I understand what he's saying, but I didn't have time to explain the nuances of why we can't do it that way, right? It's not like, and so one of the best pieces of advice, and every person I tell like that ever asks me for advice or comes and wants to learn about entrepreneurship is like, don't listen to anything. Like, do not go out and do anything I say, right? Like, I don't know your business, I don't know what you're doing, I don't know your industry potentially. Like, I'm just telling you what I like think after hearing you talk for a few minutes, right? Like, in no way, shape, or form should you just take what I'm saying and go execute it, right? Like, I'm just going to try to help point out things that you may not have thought of, right? And like, it's up to you to make the decision.
Yes. Yeah, that's I think that's great perspective. And we talk a lot about big part of our thesis here is way more than advice. Like, we're going to get in and help you do, because until we're rolled up next to you, helping you fight the fight, it's hard to have and be able to really share that perspective of what the problem is, or what the solution to go really develop to that problem should be.
Yeah.
And it's just a different orientation than drive by, fly by.
Yeah. And I think that's great. Like, that's so amazing that you can do that for your companies. And I think it probably would make, your time and your impact much more meaningful as well, right? Like, some of the advisors and the people that we have that have supported, mentors that we've had that have supported me along the way that are able to do that have been transformative for the company, right? Because they've continued to see progress, continued to, see the updates that I share and actually, have contextual awareness and understanding, and can say, hey man, like, you really shouldn't do this, or like, you should try thinking about this, or you should, you shouldn't hire these types. You should, this is what you need, and that's one of the big things that's been incredibly helpful for us.
That's awesome.
So it's awesome that you guys are doing that with OC4, and especially because, like you said, right, like the first time entrepreneurs, right, it's tough to navigate this space. And so if you have that context and it's in your sweet spot and your experience, right, then why wouldn't they listen? Why wouldn't you do that? So
yeah, hopefully we're being helpful, obviously, or giving good direction more often than not. So catch us up on sort of where things are with the company and what's ahead in the coming year.
So Spinal Singularity is a early stage med device company based in San Clemente. We're designing a product we call the connected catheter, and it's a catheter for men who've lost control of their bladder. And so it enables them to empty their bladder with the push of a button, and eliminates the need for drainage bags and all the problems associated with catheterization. So many issues that people have to deal with. And so we've been developing this product for a little over 4 years now. We've had multiple clinical studies. So we've done about 3 clinical studies and iterated each time to make a product that, works and performs to the expectations and the reliability that we need. And so we have the latest iteration of the device, which we're going back into clinic with soon. They've been ready since mid-March, but obviously due to the challenges that we've foreseen, all of our clinics are closed for elective procedures and research.
Is that starting to open back up a little bit?
It is, yeah. So, so we're optimistic that over the next month, most of these clinics will begin to open back up, and we'll be able to get back on track and move forward with the business. And so where we are, this study that we're performing will hopefully enable us to get enough data to certify and validate that the product works and submit to the FDA for clearance. And so our goal is to collect this data over the next year or so, and then hopefully be on the market with an FDA clearance in 2021.
Very exciting. Very exciting. So you're doing it here in Orange County, which I greatly applaud. All of us willing to sort of put out the shingle and do it here. What do you think we can do better here? And I guess particularly to get more people excited about participating, even investing in innovation here. And what I think about is sort of innovation moving forward, where, the innovations of the past that maybe are where people made a lot of their money here aren't necessarily the same ones moving forward. So any thoughts on how to get people more excited about innovation ahead?
Yeah, I think for the ecosystem, the things that that could really help is the network and creating more points of contact within the network, both on the entrepreneur side and also on the investor side. And then I think the two things really is the network and education, right? And not like formal education, but just being able to understand how to do startup investing, right? There's plenty of, very wealthy people here, family offices, ultra high net worth individuals, all of these people. And if they've made their money in a lot of different ways, they may not be a part of an angel investing group or have access to this or know how to invest in startups. And so I think some of the angel groups could be effective at doing that. And a lot of it's just proximity and points of contact, right? And so for me, I didn't, know anybody who was a medical device entrepreneur, so it was foreign to me. And so I had to seek those people out and learn from them and figure it out. And so I think it's the same way as if, I had no idea I wanted to go to UCLA, and when I did, I didn't know anybody who was there, and so I had to seek out people and find people within my network to make it tangible and actionable, right? And then after talking with them and understanding the situation, I was able to accomplish that task. And so I think creating networks and making things like this tangible for people is the only way to do it. And so for someone who may be an ultra high net worth individual who's never invested in a startup before, if they find a person like you or Matt Hayden or any of these people that can help them and curate the deal flow and understand terms and investment profile and trajectories and potential returns and those sorts of things in a comfortable and non-threatening way, then they could take that risk. And if the companies are delivering, then they'll have a good experience and create massive returns, hopefully, as good startups do, and then create the hopefully a desire to do that more often, and additional funds to do that more often. And so I think it's just introducing those investors and educating them on that side. And then for the entrepreneur side too, the one thing I think that the Bay Area does really well that we haven't figured out, and just I think probably because of a lot of different reasons, is there's like these constant interactions. It's like a hive, right, of just entrepreneurship. So you walk down the street and you see everybody goes there, like it's all roads lead to Rome. everybody's there, right? Like
it's in the water. Yeah,
people,
you just go. Yeah, you feel like you almost feel like you're missing out if you're not in that.
Yeah, world. And so that's a good thing. But I don't think Orange County may ever replicate that.
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that's also a good thing because, we like having yards and space and open spaces and going to the beaches, and we have great weather, and we have all of this stuff that creates a little more isolation. And so that's why one of the challenges that presents is how do we foster this collaboration and the networking? And that's something that, Matt Hayden and you're doing, and we've tried to build these networks and things. And I just recently started a small group to try to unite and create the collaboration and just strengthen the network of med tech and med device CEOs and founders and executives of these startups here in Orange County. Because what I found after, meeting so many different people was that there's so much innovation and entrepreneurship going on here, but you just never know because
that's right. It's quiet.
We're not
it's
bouncing each other. We're not we're not bumping into each other walking on the street because we're not compressed and in this hive, right? But with tools and technology like Zoom and everything else, right? Like we can set up and facilitate this type of collaboration, and people seem to enjoy it. And so that's what we've done. Personally, we've got maybe 15 to 20 med device or med tech founders, CEOs, COOs, executives that all join. And right now we're meeting weekly actually on Zoom. But when we were meeting in person, it was monthly, just for happy hours, hanging out and just getting to know each other, right? Because it's fun, right, to get to hang out and do this. Absolutely. And it's therapeutic to talk to other people in a similar situations as you, but then you also learn about opportunities and like you said earlier, like creating advantage, right? It's been really, really rewarding and really amazing to see. That's
awesome. Yeah. And I mean, I applaud you for doing it. And, we need to do more of that. We need to do more cross-pollination. I mean, there's industries like med device or automotive or apparel. I mean, there's all kinds of diversity of industry here, which I actually think is one of Orange County's strengths. But you have people that often live in those silos, and some of the breakthrough innovations may come by the cross-pollination and those collisions that could occur. And so, I'm just trying to encourage people to be a little bit more open-minded and just even proactively storytelling. Part of the reason why I started this was just to try to give people like you an opportunity to tell your story, because there are, to your point, amazing people here doing really cool things, and there just isn't enough of a platform or set of platforms for them to talk about it, to hopefully inspire. If you can inspire one more person to go pursue their dream, that's going to be another activated, excitable node in this network, right?
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, like I said, culturally, there's some differences with the Bay Area, right? Like, if you're a highly experienced engineer here and you may not find your next job on Craigslist, whereas, in the Bay Area, like that why wouldn't you find a great job on Craigslist, right? Like a lot of the stuff is sometimes insular. So it was really hard for me when I was first starting, because I had no personal network and no experience in the industry to try to break in and find talented people to hire. And so, so it's never going to be the same, but at the same time, like you said, if you can create awareness and platforms and everything else and more touch points within the network, and storytelling, like hopefully it'll make it more relatable and accessible to people.
Sure. What things do you feel like, as a founder, trying to build a company, what are the things that you feel like we do need to bolster or improve to help someone like you here? I mean, I think you're a great example. You didn't grow up here, you didn't go to USC and come back home, just sort of come back, do the cycle. But we should be trying to roll out the welcome mat for people like you, trying to start amazing companies and create a platform for great jobs here that you can. So what can we do better in your mind to help you succeed?
Yeah, I think for us right now, there's probably some political things that could help, like some policies, as far as like some preferential tax treatment and some other things. So I've been exploring some of the opportunity zone things, because there's one in San Clemente where we live and where our business is. And so those types of things on the policy level could be helpful. I think the investment and access to capital is very important, obviously. And it'll never, like I said, it may never be the same as the Bay Area, but at the same time, just providing or finding those types of early stage capital and those opportunities here could be helpful. And then, the network itself, like just doing that and fostering that is definitely of value. One thing on the policy level as well that I haven't seen that I've seen in a lot of other places, which I think has been pretty successful for them, is just money, right? The dollars, for like government dollars to create this ecosystem, right? And so like, I think one of the most successful, the highest paying ones I saw recently was in Buffalo, New York. And they had a startup competition where if you applied, they would give you up to $500,000 if you win, if your company wins, as long as you move the company to Buffalo, New York.
Started, yeah.
Right, or kept it there for a year and had a majority of employees there.
City funds.
I think so. I'm pretty sure it was government funds, right? Because they were like, hey, we need to diversify our offerings here. This is a good place to be. Like, let's see if, $500,000, if that creates 2 or 3 or 4 high-paying jobs, like we're going to make money back on tax. Like that's going to be a good investment of our resources. And so we pay for a lot of taxes on a lot of stuff here in Orange County. And like, I would be hard pressed to think that, we can't front another $1 million for a competition like that or something to, or something, right? It may not even need to be $1 million, right? Like it may only need to be a certain amount of money.
Sure. But that, it's got to be compelling enough that somebody like you says, hey, I'm willing to go compete for that because that will allow me to actually hire a few people. I mean, that matters. I mean, if you spend, I mean, one of the things I've seen over and over here, I mean, I call it the return on effort. And often that return on effort to raise not that much capital is really low. And that's challenging. It's really challenging as an entrepreneur. It can be just so tiring and disheartening. And I think at times even takes a little bit of the energy out of your sales for going to pursue this opportunity. And I think for some here, that's what keeps them in jobs. And it's like, it's this negative cycle where they go, you know what, I'm just going to stay in this job. It's fairly comfortable. And, my whole thing is like, we got to inspire people to get out of their comfort zone, but we have to show them that the support is there when they do, and not just slosh money around at any random idea, but to show people that there is a support system here that wants to help them be successful.
For sure. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I think, like you said, right, like $500,000 for a seed stage startup is a lot of, like, it's a big deal. And I think to our credit, right, we have a lot of stuff going for us as well, right, which is, it's not a bad place to live. It's a good,
it's amazing. Like, best place there is, as far as I'm concerned.
Best place to live in the world, right? Great weather, lots of stuff to do, good, talented, people, great climate.
That's right.
Moving to Buffalo, New York is a different proposition, right?
Yeah, you may have to raise the price.
Hard,
yeah, exactly.
Right. Like, I'm a wimp now. I don't do cold anymore. Another one that's big too is I think San Antonio as a city was co-investing in similar types of ideas and terms, right? Like, hey, I can help corral $2 million for your Series A round if you move the company here, or those sorts of things. I've heard that from multiple startups as well. And so, we got a lot going for us, but if the cities want this type of ecosystem and this type of development and these types of jobs, like, the talent's here, it's just a matter of, creating those opportunities. And even that alone, right? Like, the one company that wins the $500,000 might be, one interaction itself, but the hundreds of companies that apply for that and come down and creating this network and interacting, like, that's just another point of contact, for networking and building those sorts of things. And that was similar to what another program that we did was called MedTech Innovator. And they're set up as a nonprofit, but they take, it's a virtual accelerator for med devices and med tech. And they have a cash prize of, I think this year it's like $300K, which is non-dilutive. It's just cash if you win. And it's all corporately sponsored and things, but it's an amazing program because strategic companies are there that are interested in looking at new technologies and, and all of these things, and advisors, and the ecosystem is there, and it creates that touch point and that point of contact for everybody. And people that I still stay in touch with today,
That's awesome. Well, you've certainly been smart about tapping into some of those opportunities like Y Combinator and that accelerator. And that, I think those are the especially in this day and age, the kinds of inputs that certainly I'm sure have and will help you down the line.
Yeah, we were incredibly fortunate, and as a first time founder, right, like it's a big struggle to raise money. So we did the shotgun approach, right? We did everything, right? Everything to get started. So like, pooling our savings, crowdfunding campaign for donations, accelerators, try to talk to angel investors, try to talk to some VCs, which we were obviously way too early for, government grants. Like we tried everything. Like I said, sold my soul to start the company and leverage it and like get it there. But like, you do what you got to do to get it going and make progress. So
that's the commitment and passion that I just like warms my heart in a founder. And I just so want to see succeed. Right. I mean, I touched so many times on the show over the last year about this idea of how do we create unfair advantage? Like that's my aspiration is I want somebody to like you to be able to stand up on the stage in front of people and say, I'm so glad I did it in Orange County because they gave me every advantage of the life and the talent and the support to do this and sort of ensure, help will me where at times you feel like you're so alone as an entrepreneur. I think that idea of like others behind us to help will us to success is often what we're looking for.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that's an amazing vision. And I'm glad people like you and, a lot of other people like Matt Hayden and everybody else who introduced us are trying to create that. Right. And there's so much opportunity here in the county and look forward to seeing it potentially, materialize hopefully.
So how do you keep yourself sharp and innovative? I mean, you're obviously in on the bleeding edge in your industry, but how do you keep evolving and innovating yourself?
I think personally, I've tried to stay true to a few things that I'm incredibly passionate about. And so one obviously is veterans causes, two is medical devices and medical technology, and three is, just spending time with my family and my wife and my kids. And so within each of those areas, it's just, maintaining awareness of the situation and understanding what's happening around us and, staying current on things like that. And then trying to identify new opportunities for the future. Right. And so for a while with this company, one of the pieces of advice I got was to stay focused. Right. And I was just incredibly focused and tightly focused. So I stopped doing anything but this for like probably 3.5, like majority of the time. And only recently have I started to kind of realize like, it's okay to take 30 minutes a day or an hour a day outside of the 10 or 12 hours for Spinal Singularity to like explore these other things and talk about these things or, do this stuff. And I think for me, that's just the way I'm built, right? Like I've always been 0 to like 90% guy, like, cause in the military, 80% solution is everything, right? Like you never wait for a perfect solution. And so it's been a challenge for me in this industry because 90% doesn't mean anything.
It's not good enough.
Gotta be 90 to 99.9%, right? And so all the employees that we have are the opposite, right? They're like finishers, right? They're 90 to 99.9%. And so, and I tried to force myself in that box for a long time. But I think now I've kind of got a good balance where like, I'm still 100% committed and there's no question about my commitment to what we're doing. But at the same time, like there's no need to like prevent myself from maintaining awareness about the system and thinking about new ideas or new opportunities outside of this or anything like that, right? It's just something like you said, you bounce around, you have ADD, like entrepreneurial ADD, and you're like thinking about things, but at the same time, that's part of being a creative person and an innovator too. Right. So,
well, the key is just having that right team, right? I mean, first it's about, being self-aware of yourself. If you are the idea person, you don't want everybody to be the idea person around because then maybe nothing gets done. So having both that awareness of yourself, but also then understanding the key components to a team. I mean, it sounds like you've nailed it with yours in that you need those last mile folks, particularly in medical device, to ensure the quality and consistency and things are there. But if every single person is obsessing about that, then you may really end up in a local optima that you can't see beyond, right? So it sounds like, I mean, I'm so impressed with where you are. I'm excited for what's ahead, because I have nothing but confidence that you guys are going to just crush it and get through your key milestones ahead. So I know Paul was giving me the time sign, so let's go to sort of final lap here. Unfortunately, I think we could continue to chat for a while. I always want to let my guests share kind of a key lesson they've learned or piece of advice that they'd like to leave with the audience. Anything in particular that comes to mind for you this morning?
Yeah. What you just said really kind of sparked one thing that I've always believed and learned and been indoctrinated with, and also think is applicable now. And so the basic philosophy is, in order to lead effectively or to lead a team, there's really three things that are absolutely essential. And what they are is situational awareness, self-awareness, and the ability to communicate. And so knowing what's happening around me and what's happening in our environment and, the ecosystem, understanding the situation, understanding how that impacts ourselves, our team, myself or my team, and what we're doing, and then being able to communicate to other people in our team to be able to do that. And so I think that's the real root of teamwork. And when you boil it all down, without that, you absolutely will fail. And where that comes from is some of the military doctrine where, the basic requirements to be able to command effectively are situational awareness and the ability to communicate.
So good. So good. Well, Derek, thank you so much for joining me this morning and for sharing a ton of really valuable entrepreneurial wisdom, life wisdom, perspective, so much gold in here. I wish you all the best with Spinal Singularity and with really the community building that you're also doing here. Thanks for doing your part, and you're definitely doing your part to accelerate OC.
Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure chatting. And, if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out, I'm easy to find. You can go to our website, spinalsingularity.com, and connect with us there.
You've just listened to Accelerate OC. Join our live recordings every Tuesday morning at accelerateoc.com, or listen, like, and share anytime from your favorite podcast spot. Let's accelerate OC together.